when we talk about super bikes, we're talking about these very, very heavy, these super, super fast bikes that allow you to go over 260 miles per hour. And it's a very, very time sensitive experience where if you brake too late, then you're off the track. If you accelerate too slow, then you're last. It's a very, very high speed, adrenaline inducing, just full body experience.
Welcome everybody to another episode of The Safe State. Today I am joined by Eduardo from the VRider team. How you doing, Eduardo?
Doing fantastic. How are you doing, Bo?
I'm doing really well today. I'm glad to have you on the show, and I can't wait to talk to you about VRider. This game is slick. I've had a chance to play a little bit of it. I haven't gotten super deep into it yet, but I did win my first championship last night, and it was pretty awesome.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that, Bo.
Yeah, I love it. I love the speed. When you say it's superbike racing, it feels like you're on a superbike. I mean, it's pretty incredible. But I want to start today just kind of getting to know you a little bit, Eduardo, and what your background is and how you came to, making a VRider SBK. What led you to that?
Of course. So, hi, everybody. My name is Eduardo. I am a project manager, and I've been part of the VRider SBK project since its conception. I originally studied at Champlain College in Burlington, Vermont, graduated with a game production degree, a bachelor's degree in 2019, and I started looking for jobs, and I was super, super fortunate to have found Funny Tales. They were based in Wynwood, Miami. So I was super, super lucky that I was also based in Miami, and I started working with them in February 2020. And when I joined them, they had launched previous SBK licensed games on mobile. So they have been launching for a couple of years now. Like when I joined, they launched SBK 15, then 16, and we were kind of exploring about the next installment of the, let's say, IP. And we worked on the mobile game, which was SBK 2021. It was a free-to-play game, both on iOS and Android. And from that initial mobile version, we saw the emerging market in the VR segment, specifically Meta. And we decided to pivot away from mobile to VR. So that was a very, very interesting pivot.
Was it called VRider on mobile, or did you add the VR?
No, yeah, exactly. It was originally just SBK Mobile originally.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
since we were doing the switch to VR, we started brainstorming with names. And since you're a rider, you don't pilot a bike, you ride a bike. Really.
Right, yeah.
So we saw Rider, and then we saw the opportunity of introducing the VR, VRider. Boom.
Makes sense to me. So this is like your initial entry into the gaming industry was with this company, with this franchise.
Yeah. So originally I started off with educational mobile games. We partnered with another company where we made educational games to help young kids ages from like 6 to 12 to learn how to spell, learn how to do simple math. So I got my hands dirty with game development and the whole process, specifically in the mobile segment early on. But at the same time, I was looking at the SBK mobile at 2021, as I mentioned before. So I originally started and sort of got into the video game industry working specifically in the mobile segment. I also worked on different projects on PC, depending on clients, like, for example, a virtual tour that people can explore within their browser of a watch manufacturer. Essentially, it's like a 360-degree walkthrough of different sections of this watch manufacturer, and you can do like a click, and then you can move around and see different areas. Okay. So I wasn't always, and I haven't always been solely video game related. It's sort of software, entertainment, and we've launched and done different projects across mobile, PC, console, and obviously VR.
I think that I know this isn't what you're here to talk about, but I think that the whole like educational gaming segment is something that we're seeing it like become bigger and bigger because there is, man, kids do, they learn more than you think when they're playing a video game, and it
Yeah,
really does help keep them engaged and makes them want to do the work, I think. So that's really cool that you're able to do some of that.
100%. A little bit of backstory actually. I originally wanted to become a teacher.
Okay.
So when I was applying to colleges and I got accepted to the game production degree, I was like, hey, like I'm passionate about video games. I'm also passionate about education. But, I went ahead with video games. And then one of the first projects that I got when I got hired was to make a game to teach kids. So it was a kind of a full circle moment there.
That's
So it was
cool.
really beautiful and amazing experience to have.
We homeschool our kids, and
Nice.
they play educational games pretty often.
Nice.
And it's just great. It really does help out. You had wanted to be a teacher. Was there a point where you pivoted away from that towards to what you're doing now, and what did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess a little bit of more backstory to me is I'm originally from South America. So I left my
Okay.
home country when I was 17, and I got originally accepted to a college back home to, study education. But then I also got the opportunity to study abroad. I've been blessed to have dual citizenship since I was born. So I looked at my options and I decided to, I don't want to say jump ship, but I decided to leave my hometown, home country, and I came to the US. And I was super, super lucky to just get my hands dirty and start working basically like 2 months after I graduated. So it's been a ride, if I'm honest.
Let's talk about VRider. Maybe just real quick as we get started into this, just explain what is SBK to the audience who may not have heard of it before, and just how would you pitch the game? I guess how would you describe it?
SBK is a very, very popular superbike racing championship. It is super, super big in Europe. We're basically, it's been MotoGP is the highest category, and it has one of the highest and most intense bikes with the prototypes. So when it comes to the differences between MotoGP, and for those who don't know what MotoGP is, it's imagine Formula One but with bikes. MotoGP is like the top tier, the most intense prototype bikes, essentially machines and rocket ships that you can't buy really. So SBK, the Superbike Championship, is one category below MotoGP. And one major difference is that the bikes you see the riders, ride around the tracks are bikes and models that you can go to a dealership and buy. So, for example, the Ducati Panigale
Mhm.
V4RR is one of the most recognizable brands in the SBK Championship. And if you go to a Ducati dealership, you can find the exact same Ducati V4RR as a purchasable option. So when we talk about super bikes, we're talking about these very, very heavy, these super, super fast bikes that allow you to go over 260 miles per hour, or for those that don't know miles, over 300 kilometers per hour. And it's a very, very time sensitive experience where if you brake too late, then you're off the track. If you accelerate too slow, then you're last. It's a very,
Yeah.
very high speed, adrenaline inducing, just full body experience. And when we were looking at how the riders would be, taking turns, positioning themselves when riding, we decided to grab all these elements and introduce them into the game, VRider SBK, so that it's not just another joystick, you're
Hmm.
playing and you're watching. It's a full body experience that allows you to be a lot more immersed. And with your full body, you can be a lot more accurate when playing. So that's a little bit of a backstory and some little details for VRider there.
Well, I can attest to the fact that if you brake too late, you're not making some of those turns. I definitely went off the track a few times. You know what really surprised me? There's a lot of things that surprised me, actually. One of the things I was worried about was how would it feel if you crashed? And I was really impressed with the fact, because I was afraid like it would be too, like, I don't know, it'd be jarring or something, but it really
Yeah.
wasn't. And I was really impressed with how you just kind of allowed yourself to come out of, you see the bike kind of go out in front of you, and then it fades away and you fade back in on the track. And it just felt it wasn't nauseating or scary or anything like that. Like, and so I was really impressed with that. Can you explain, like, was there testing that went along
Oh yeah.
with that trial and
Oh yeah.
error?
100%. 100%. So, as I mentioned before, we shifted from making mobile games to VR. And
Hmm.
when we first started prototyping and testing the initial versions of the game in VR, we immediately realized and were, you know, impressed with motion sickness. Because when you
Yeah,
have like a VR headset strapped to your face, and when you're immersed and you're moving inside of the game, but you're sitting down and still in real life, there is that disconnect that your brain thinks that you're moving, but you're not. So that's what
yeah,
causes motion sickness. So right off the bat, we knew if we want to make a high speed, immersive, and entertaining game, we need to make sure that players don't get motion sick.
yeah.
So there was a lot of testing. I can for sure say that I was one of the team members that tested the game the most. So I lived through all the different prototypes, all the different changes. The biggest pillar and the biggest sort of base we wanted to build upon was preventing motion sickness. And
Sure.
we tried a lot of different things. And in general, we focused on some core pillars. One, absolute, and I think it's the most important thing, is high and stable frame rate. 72 frames per second, as when we launched the Quest 2 was kind of the headset of the moment. Now with the Quest 3, you can kind of tweak it to be more, but 72 was kind of the max. So we made the game and polished it to run at 72 FPS per second. Another element that we did was incorporating the player moving their body and moving their heads. So it's not just, you're playing and you're static. It's something that involves the body. And by involving the body and involving you and seeing how your actions affect gameplay, that reduces the onset of motion sickness. So,
Sure.
for
Yeah.
example, a couple of elements that we introduced for bike fanatics across the world: with your controller, you can twist to accelerate as if you were on an actual bike, and you kind of ride the bike with, a vertical distance. It's not like forward and backward. You don't ride a bike at 200 miles per hour and decide to turn left. You have to like lean, or you have to turn
Yeah.
slowly. So with that verticality and that sort of movement, that reduces the onset of motion sickness.
Yeah.
Another feature that we combine that introduces and allows the player to be even more immersed and be part of the game is aerodynamics. So with any bike or car, there's a windshield. So if you wanted to accelerate and reach a top speed faster, we introduced a feature where you physically need to duck your head behind the windshield, and that'll make your acceleration go up faster.
No
And
way.
vice versa. Yeah, vice versa. If you
I
wanted
didn't
to
realize that.
faster, yeah, there's an audio cue where if you're above the windshield, you're going to be hearing like a wind rustle and bustle in your ears.
Oh, yeah.
So if you duck below, that kind of goes away. So you can
That's
accelerate faster and
brilliant.
reach your top speed, but at the same time, if you want to brake faster, you go above the windshield like the riders do in real life. Because of the wind hitting your chest, making and you're part of the bike, you're going to brake faster. So when you combine all these different elements, it's a full body experience when you're like leaning, turning up and down, positioning yourself. So you kind of trick your mind into thinking that you're actually part of the, game. And not only this, but we introduced something that it's a very, very subtle reduction of your field of view with the 3D helmet mesh. So
Yeah.
when you start the game and you boot it up and you're riding and you're doing the initial tutorial, you're going to see that there's like a little helmet mesh that it's not only for aesthetics, it also kind of limits your view so that you're kind
Uh-huh.
of focused on the center of the screen, which is another major part since there's so many things and so many moving parts happening, slightly
Well,
limiting the player
yeah,
does
I
wonders.
did I did notice that instead of using vignetting, which I saw that you can turn on vignetting, but instead of
Yeah,
using that as the default for, reducing motion sickness, you put the visor on, you have the helmet on, and that is a prettier version of vignetting in a way, and it
right.
makes you feel a little more immersed there in the game, and I really liked that. I really liked that touch.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
cool.
no. And we also added for those who like let's say very, very realistic experiences, you get dirt on your visor.
Hmm.
So in the real life with the tires going so fast and small particles, racers actually get like specks of either tires, tarmac, or even little pebbles that are on the asphalt on the track that hit their visor, and they have to clean their visor. So that we added a feature where your visor gets dirty and you need to clean it so that you have a clear visor. But all of these are settings that you can toggle on and off. The vignetting, like you mentioned, is also something that we introduced. There's like two different intensities of vignetting, if you will. There's like the traditional one, and then there's the extra vignetting for those who are, let's say, prone to motion sickness or don't have their VR legs up to
Yeah.
speed.
The Quest has really brought a lot of new users into the VR world, and so there are people who are so new to it. And I'm sure this holiday season there will be a lot of new people getting it for the first time, and and I'll admit, like, I've been playing games my whole life, and I'm kind of new to VR myself. I just got a hit my Quest 3 um almost 2 years ago, not quite. Will be 2 years in January. And when I first started, there were some games was like I can only play this for about 20 to 30 minutes, and I've got to stop because I'm getting sick. But now, after a couple of years, I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah,
I can play for a lot longer. And so I think that it's really great that you all thought through all of those things, because these bikes, man, that was something else. I was worried about the motion sickness when I first booted up. I was like, is this going to make me sick? Because I was like, I'm going to be going really fast. It's not
yeah.
like walking around. This is, like you said, you're going over 260 miles per hour in some cases. That's fast. And you feel it. Like was really impressed with the sense of speed that you guys were able to accomplish. It's not just a number down on your little dashboard. You really feel like you're going that fast. And I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
How do you even accomplish that? Like,
We were very, very lucky to have a passionate team behind the project, and not only passion, but experience with motorcycles. So the game director, his name is Daniele. He's an avid, avid bike fanatic. He has like three bikes in his garage. One of them is completely custom made, and he's been riding bikes for longer than I've had my license. So having him as a sort of guide and the bearer of the torch, guiding the team as to what the experience should feel, was a major part to be able to, evoke that sense of speed and allow the player to be that immersed and feel all those different elements, ranging from the camera shake to having enough field of view to see like the little curves or the little details on the side of the tarmac go past you. So there were a lot of different things that when you slowly add all the details up, it makes it so impactful, and you get that sense of speed, camera shake, the engine sounds, the wind. There's just a lot of different
uh-huh.
layers that add to the experience.
Absolutely. Can we talk about sound design for a second?
Sure.
I one of the things I noticed was just, it is so great when, like, there were moments when I would maybe I would slow down too early or whatever because I was learning how to play the game, or I would get off into the grass or something, and you would hear the bike behind you come, whizzing past. You'd hear that motor, and it sounds like they're coming from behind, and then they pass by your ear,
Yeah.
and it's all in like 3D audio,
Right.
and then also just the way that you can hear and kind of almost feel when you get to the edge of the track, sometimes there'll be like little bumps and you can feel
Yep.
those, like hear them, or in the
Yep.
grass, it sounds different. Like you guys thought through all of that stuff. And I appreciate that so much. The little attentions to detail. How difficult was it to make sure I feel like you didn't miss anything. Like
You're absolutely right. When you play a track like over 30 times, you can start to think about and really, really nail down all the little areas and all the little details that are necessary to make that track feel, something that exists or something that based of on real life.
Mhm.
So our art team and our design team did an amazing, amazing job of being able to basically replicate the tracks super, super close to the real life counterpart. We downloaded meshes from Google Maps. We looked at topography. We looked at how to make it replicate the actual circuit as close to reality. And with that comes, different elements between the track, grass, gravel, sand, and like the curbs that you said, the white and red sort of bumps or the white and blue, all
Mhm.
these different areas when you're racing and you're focused on on trying to get and shave off those milliseconds for every turn, every straight, every lap. Thinking about and adding those audio cues was a major sort of layer that allows the player focus on, okay, am I taking this curve too close to the inner side? Am I hitting the apex correctly? When you do hit the apex or when you do take that curve in the best way possible, you kind of start seeing the lines. And once you correlate the ideal line to get the fastest lap time with the sound, it kind of gets you into this flow state where every time you try to do a lap and you try to perfect listening and trying to replicate the sounds that provide you to go the best route or the fastest route possible is a major sort of audio cue for the player so that they're not constantly looking like, okay, where am I in relation to the track? It's more like, okay, I hear it, I know. I hear the grass, I need to adjust immediately. It's not like, oh, I'm going slower. Why am I going slower? No, it's because of the
Yeah.
grass. The grass has a unique sound. So all these different, details, like we mentioned before, allow the player to have a very immersive experience and close to real life.
Loved the sound design, and I'm kind of an auditory learner going back to your education days. So I do notice those things, and just loved how you guys designed all of that. I thought it was great. How do you become the official game of the SBK? Like, because you've licensed vehicles, you've licensed real life racers. That's right? Right? Am I right about that?
Yeah. So when I joined the company, the company already had an agreement with the SBK Championship. Like I
Okay.
mentioned before, they had launched previous installments of the IP, like
Hmm.
SBK 15 and 16 on mobile. So I wasn't really part of getting the license, if you will. I think it was something that when we, as a company, prior to me joining, we did a bunch of different racing games for mobile. We even did a Ducati challenge, so a specific brand, not just a generic one. And we had a very successful reception in the early days of the mobile gaming sort of segment in like 2014, 15. Our mobile games really blew up. We had like over 45 million downloads. So, with that sort of weight behind us, we were able to confidently continue with the license.
Gotcha.
And you're absolutely right. And there were very different steps for receiving approval. So the SBK championship as a whole is divided into the championship, and that involves, the whole organization, the tracks, the sponsor layouts on the tracks, and, getting confirmation for those, or the green light of saying, okay, this is well done. Then we have the bike brands. In the game, we have 5 major bike brands. We have the Kawasaki, Ducati, Honda, BMW, and Yamaha. So our art team faithfully recreated these as close to their real life counterpart. And one of my favorite features is in the main menu, you have your bike sort of in front of you. And if you kind of have your boundary big enough, you can physically walk around and appreciate all the details of the bike.
Mm, yeah.
And not only this, but so we have the SBK, we have the bike brands. Now we have the different teams. Every team has a different bike. Every team's bike has different logos, and every team has a different rider. So we had to not only create the tracks, put the sponsors correctly on the tracks, model the bikes, then make the liveries for each of the teams for each of the bikes. And in total, it was like 23 unique versions of bikes and character models. So there were a lot of, updates, a lot of tweaks, a lot of
Yeah.
feedback as to, oh, this logo is a little bit stretched. No, this is perfect. This rider has this logo on his hand, the helmet. So there was a lot of different areas that we had to target specifically and reach out for confirmation. But luckily, thanks to our superb art team, that was pretty smooth.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people don't think about all the work that goes behind that part. It's like if you hire like a graphic designer to make you a poster for in a local play or something, and you need to make a poster for it, and they send you a proof, right? That you have to be like, okay, yeah, I like this, or I don't like that. And can you tweak this, or can you move this to the right a little bit, or whatever? You had to do that with all of those logos and stuff. It sounds like that's what you're saying, with all these different brands.
Yeah, no. So the whole SBK championship, they usually have photo shoots, for promotional material, for the on the circuit sort of big billboards with the screen to showcase the riders. So partnering and working with the SBK team was absolutely amazing. They provided us with super useful photographs. Like we were like, hey, like if we can accurately make this, we would need to have kind of a 360 shot of every
Mm-hmm.
bike and every rider, T posing, A posing. And this was already part of their sort of process for every race or for every championship. But letting us have all these assets was tremendously helpful for our team.
That's amazing. A lot of coordination goes behind something like that. What would you say was the biggest challenge in the making of VRider? You got any stories for us of trying times and how
Let's
you
see.
overcame them?
During our initial launch phase, back in the day, we had App Lab. And
Mm-hmm.
for those who don't know or don't remember, the Meta Store has changed dramatically over the years. When we launched, there was this whole process to get your game approved by Meta before being put on the store.
Yeah.
So there was this sort of separate store or this separate section called App Lab where we launched a early access version of the game there to validate to Meta that there is traction, there is that sort of need for this sim racing VR experience. And not only that, but the game is well made. When we started very slowly introducing the game and doing QA and gathering just random people to play the game, we realized that the game had a very steep learning curve, and it still does. But to mitigate this, we decided to work on and introduce a tutorial, and not only a tutorial, but sort of more sort of hints and visual cues for the player.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we noticed was, number one, new players had a hard time staying on the track.
Mm.
Number two, once they stayed in the track and they learned how to go fast, they didn't know when or how much they need to brake before a turn. So all these different elements kind of created frustration to the player. And we don't want the player to be frustrated. We don't want someone to
Right.
buy the game or hop on and in 10 minutes be frustrated. So we took a step back and we really looked at what we had, and we knew that it was an amazing experience. It's just a matter of how do we onboard the player in the most effective and the most seamless way. And
Yeah.
we did many versions of the tutorial. We had a lot more steps in the original versions, and we slowly reduced it. And then we essentially just had the core essence of, here's how you accelerate. Here is how you brake. These indicators tell you when you should brake. And as the player completed this tutorial, we introduced a system that analyzes the player's performance in the tutorial. And then after the player completes it, the game recommends a specific preset of all the settings that the player can have enabled or disabled, depending on how well they performed. So for example, if you're a new VR enthusiast, you've never been on a bike, and you get on this game, it's a little daunting to then suddenly go like 260 miles per hour and then have to brake. So there are many different settings in the game that allow new players to slowly learn, such as a brake assist. So if you don't brake, the game will start braking for you. We
Yeah.
have a lot of visual cues, like these red gates with a little exclamation point, which is a visual cue for the player to be like, okay, I need to start braking. There's this ideal trajectory that tells you where you should kind of be aiming or positioning your bike on the track. You can kind of see where the curve is ahead of you. And not only this, but it changes color. And as visual as a visual cue, green means go, red means stop. So if you're going too fast and the line turns red, it's another indication that you need to slow down. So all of these different elements kind of eased the onboarding experience for new players. And we definitely saw a better sort of not only reception, but also gradual learning of the players. Like someone who didn't play the tutorial and hopped in the game, got frustrated after 2 laps. But with the tutorial, now we were seeing players have 5 laps and being like, hey, like I'm getting the rhythm of this. I'm learning the track. I know when to start braking, when to stop. I'm actually tweaking all the settings, like a higher sensitivity or lower sensitivity, instead of manual gear shifts, automatic gear shifts. So all these different, again, layers add to
Yeah.
the whole experience, but introducing and explaining to the player how each layer affects gameplay is also a major topic that we discussed, tested, and continuously improved to make sure that players had the most beneficial and seamless transition into being an official VRider.
The moral of the story is don't skip the tutorial. That's what I'm hearing you say.
The moral of the story is, yeah, don't skip the tutorial, and
Yeah.
always be aware of new players, especially players that have never sort of done something as niche as ride a bike.
Yeah. Well, that's me, and I'll say I really appreciate the indicator of hey, you're coming up on a curve. You better where it turns red or whatever. Follow the line, and like I needed that. So
Of course. I needed that too. Like I remember the first couple of times I raced in every track, I would just, not know when to start braking.
yeah,
But having those cues and basically being the guinea pig to say like, hey, we should tell the player that they should start braking around here. That's
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
huge aspect that was important
And
to have ready.
and how the red fades and changes into green when you're going at an appropriate speed for what's coming up. Like that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Has been very helpful to me. So we talked about challenges. Let's talk about the most rewarding or maybe like a funny moment from developing the game. You got any funny stories?
Oh yeah,
Something
no,
that
I have plenty of funny stories. So during the early stages of the game, more specifically when we were trying to make sure that the AI opponents, so there's single
Mhm.
player and there's multiplayer. When you play single player, depending on the game mode, you would be racing against AI opponents. It would
Mhm.
essentially be you on the track against 8 or 9 other AI opponents or less. You can tweak this before you start a race. And when we were developing the game, we realized that in specific turns, in specific circuits, it kind of became a bowling match where you would see all these AIs slow down in this one turn. And since the AIs would be in a line, the guy in the back would not have enough time to slow down and just slam into the AIs, and everyone would just be falling off of their bikes and falling over. So it was literally watching like a whole strike in bowling happen in front of you, but with bikes and riders. So that was obviously something that we could not allow the game to have during launch. Um, then we decided to have the AIs react more proactively and measure. And another thing that would happen is if you were to brake too fast or too sudden, the AI behind you, knowing that you didn't have to brake when you were braking, would just kind of continue. So the AI would just kind of blow over you and you would be like, you'd be just annihilated, and you would see your bike fly off and then you see the AI fly off as well. And that was another issue where, if you're a new player and you're trying to go slow and steady and an AI just slams you in the back, that's not fun.
No, no, yeah.
So doing all these little tweaks and changes was major. Another funny thing that happened was, that scene in ET where the kids are with the ET in the basket and the
Uh,
police are there like, hey, stop, and they start
yeah,
floating away.
right. Yeah.
Well, something similar happened during development as well, where what I was testing and looking at how the AIs sort of responded and acted on a circuit, I
Mhm.
realized that sometimes, even though it was only a visual thing, the AI rider model, like the character on the bike, suddenly got detached and started floating off in the air. And so
Really?
you were very confused as to, okay, like, where is this guy going? And you would just see him go up in the air. So it was a very funny moment, and we'd had a lot of memes inside of our studio of a classic um, cathedral chants with a recording of the guy floating off, like, oh, he's been called. So that was really funny, and that was great laughs with the team. So yeah, that was really funny. We also realized that in initial versions you could kind of drift in the bike, and in real life, I mean, you can, but not to the degree that you were able to do in the game. It was kind of like Initial D, something like that, where the car is like literally horizontal, just right going forward. You could do something like that, and even though that was
Mm,
fantastic for someone who knew how to play, a new player, if you start drifting, you're like, oh my God, and you try to correct, and then, that would cause a crash. So that was one thing. Um, One last funny anecdote would be going back to your comment of when you crash, your bike just goes forward and you
mhm.
stay static. And we did that because of motion sickness. When we had QA testers outside of the studio, we did a small pool of QA testers that had never played the game. Um, People were actually asking for a cam that would follow your ragdoll. when you crashed. So we were like, we don't really know about this. Like, we are making this game so that players don't get motion sickness. And so if you crash and your camera goes on a ragdoll and you're just sitting there, but your camera is going and spinning, that, obviously would not fit well. But I remember us doing one test where we emulated and we kind of stuck the camera on the character model. Mm-hmm. And that was not fun. Let me tell you, that was way too intense. And we ultimately decided to not pursue that, or not even allow it as a feature that players can toggle on and off, because it was just way too intense of having your camera, 360 and you're just sitting there like, what is happening? So that was another funny story.
Yeah, that would not be fun. I don't think that would be fun at all.
No, I don't recommend that.
So the game, you don't just race against AI opponents. You can do that, but you can also play online against other people. Was that a feature that you had initially in the game, or was it added later? What were the challenges that came with adding a multiplayer component into the game?
That's a fantastic question. So we, as players, love competition, and SBK is all about competition. There's first place, there's second place, there's last place. So you're absolutely right that the player can race against AIs. And as a single player feature, you can do like the sort of time attack mode. We call it hot lap, where it's just you against the clock. And with this, we decided to create a global leaderboard where you would be able to see all the different lap times that anyone in the world has been able to achieve. So that's kind of like a semi-multiplayer aspect and competition involving the players trying to get the fastest lap time without any possible interference of AIs or other players. It's just you and the track, you and the machine. Your end result is, your skill. So that was a major sort of part of us trying to perfect and make sure that the time that you do a lap is super accurate, down to the milliseconds, down to the hundredth of a second. Because it happened when we were doing internal tests where we would basically we would achieve the same exact lap time down to the second, but we didn't know like why one person was above the other. And when we added those extra sort of milliseconds at the end of the second, it's a lot clearer. And as the players have been playing, if you go to the online leaderboards, you can literally see that in the top, like sort of 10, there's millisecond differences. And that's really how it is in real life as well. So that was one segment where we did the single player. We knew it was in a good state. How can we introduce a semi-multiplayer element to this? And then came multiplayer. Our team was blessed with some members that had an extensive experience. They worked with major companies beforehand, and they had experience with multiplayer. We used the Epic Games online services, and we were able to make it so that there are different ways to play online. One of the challenges we faced early on was, since I'm based in Miami and the dev team is based in Italy, there is, a physical and a very large gap between us. So when you play online, if your internet is not, let's say, perfect, or the other person's internet, or your ping, essentially, for gamer terms, if your ping was too high, you would see the other player be rubber banding in front of you. And that was super, jarring to see. But not only that, when you got close to them, it would affect you as well, because the game is trying to, mitigate and have that as accurate as possible. But in those buffer, you would kind of get, a little bit of a bump there.
Yeah, that's jarring even in like like Fortnite or something like that. When you see somebody rubber banding, but in a racing game at this speed, I would imagine it would be 10 times worse.
100%, 100%. So that was one of the challenges that we worked on extensively, and we were able to basically reduce almost to 100%. Obviously, there are some jitters between what the server receives and sends to the player, but it's not like how it was before where you didn't even know where the other player was because of their rubber banding. But regardless, even though we solved this issue, the ping is something that is outside of some players' hands. Like,
Yeah.
you can't really do much if your ping is over 300 because you joined a match on the other side of the world. And we had introduced this ping filter to avoid this rubber band issue because, for example, if I host a game here in Miami and someone in Japan joins, that ping difference, even though we added all these sort of mechanisms to avoid rubber banding, there would still be a slight disconnect because of the ping difference. And to avoid this, we decided to add a ping filter where if your ping reached a certain threshold or a certain number for a specific amount of time, you would be kicked from the lobby so that, frustration would not be affected to the other players. But then we realized, like, hey, we want people to be able to play with each other. So how can we make everyone play with everyone? So we decided to have two different game modes for multiplayer. We have the competitive, which players can collide with one another. You can bump with one another and you see each other like with 100% opacity so that you know that it's something physical that you would touch and you would have a reaction if you touch it with your bike. And then there's casual, where there is no collision. And since there is no collision, we allowed a very, very, very relaxed ping. So if you want to play very intense and very, let's say, competitive, you need to make sure that both you and the other people in the lobby have good internet speed so that everyone has a pleasant riding experience and you don't get suddenly knocked off by someone that didn't even know. So if you want to play with friends that are outside of, let's say, a stable internet connection, or they're in the other side of the world and you want to play, you can. You won't be able to crash into them, which I know everyone wants to crash into their friends sometimes, but you'll be able to still talk with them, see them, race with them, but you won't be able to crash with them. So that was a hurdle that we saw, we faced, but we prevailed.
Those are really creative solution to those problems. That's really neat. I haven't dived into the multiplayer yet. I've just been playing the single player, but I like those ideas. It sounds like you came up with a good solution. Is there anything else about the game that you just like, something that you're passionate about, that you always want people to notice or recognize, or you want to tell people about this aspect of the game that maybe doesn't get talked about? Is there anything like that? Anything else you want us to know about VRider?
I always love to talk about the aerodynamics. Like I mentioned before, being able to duck behind the windshield or above and how that affects gameplay. That addition into the game was super, super cool. But at the same time, some people don't want that sort of physicality or that involvement. So we added a feature where in the settings, you can just toggle, and with your joystick, by pressing it down, it kind of just forces the player down. If you're curious about a virtual reality experience that puts you on a bike, and it's a very simulative, or it's a very sim experience, and it's modeled to resemble and kind of evoke what riding a bike is in real life. We have all these different settings that allow you to go full sim in the game. So that's something that I always try to mention to players. A lot of players, like, even though they have been on a bike before and they played the game for the first time, they're still learning the game and they're still learning the track. And learning the track is half the battle, and figuring out what bike best suits your riding style is another part of the challenge, because each bike has different attributes. So, for example, the Ducati has excellent acceleration and a very high top speed, but your braking power isn't as good as the Yamaha, for example, or your turning is also different. So there's all these different areas and all these different layers that, as a player, you need to test, see, and figure out which one you like the most. But not only this, you can go into the settings and you can adjust a whole plethora of, settings that affect your experience.
Right.
So if you want to go full sim, you can definitely go full sim. If you want to go a more relaxed experience where you don't really have to think too much, we also have that option.
Well, like, for
So
example, one of the things that I changed was, you showed us a minute ago with the controller, you can use it as the throttle and
right,
and turn. I was not
right,
ready for that with the steering and the throttle, because I've never really ridden a bike. So
right.
so I changed it to accelerate with the trigger, and that really helped me out a lot,
Of course. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%, 100%. And we even made it so that there's like different settings that you can adjust for the sensitivity of how far you need to twist your wrist backwards.
Yeah.
Some people want to twist it a lot. Some people they prefer for it to be not as
More
intense because
subtle.
of
Yeah.
whatever reason. But there's also the trigger. So that's a super, super common and universal experience of, right is acceleration, left is braking. But if you ride a bike, then this action of being able to accelerate, but then the fact that you need to decelerate and then in the same hand press to brake is a factor of, experience at the end of the day.
Well, it's good to have all those options, I think, because you don't, there's so many different people that are going to be playing the game. And like you said, some
Yeah,
are going to be experienced and some aren't, and some are going to want more of a realistic sim. And some people are more used to like arcade racers, I guess you might say, and just need something that's a little more casual. So having
right.
all those different options built in, I'm sure, is appreciated by whoever the
Yeah.
player is that picks up the game. That's great.
Whoever is passionate about motorcycle racing and whoever has been on a bike and has experience on a bike, one of the biggest and most common questions that we've received is counter steering. For those who don't know, when you're on a bike, there is a moment when you're going to take a turn, which in theory or on paper doesn't make sense, but in reality, you need to do it. And it's essentially steering the opposite way so that the bike tilts in a certain way so that you can then enter into the curve accurately. If you've been on a bike, you know that you need to have a proper counter steer to be able to enter a curve accurately. And we thought about this, and the team did a lot of testing, and till this day there is no counter steer in the game. But the reason is, again, motion sickness. When you're on a bike, you have all these physical forces that with the counter steer happening in front of you or on you, you feel that not only on your physical body, but you feel it on the bike below you. So it's a natural sort of experience that, since you're in virtual reality and since it's a headset on your head, having that counter steer happen in front of you without all the physical elements being applied, it just created a larger disconnect between what you're seeing versus what your body is experiencing. So ultimately, we decided to not include that in the game. So for anyone who's curious as to why there is no counter steer in the game, it's all to avoid motion sickness. We have thought about it and we tested it a lot, but we just didn't find the correct sort of formula or recipe, if you will, to effectively introduce it in the game, make it feel good, and not cause motion sickness.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you guys have really put in the time. You've really put in the thought. You've really tested out a lot of different versions of the game, many of which, the public will never see or be privy to because of, just tweaking things and making things work the way that they should. So where can we get the game? Where is it available? What are all the storefronts?
That's a great question. So VRider SBK is available on the Meta Store. You can play on a Quest 2, Quest 3, Quest 3S. It's available on Steam. It's available for Pico, and it's also available for PlayStation VR 2. We have
Nice.
a cross-play enabled between Meta, Steam, and Pico. The PlayStation VR 2 cross-play is in the works. It's not something that we haven't thought of, and it's not something that we don't want to do. We really want everyone to be able to play with everyone. So that can be something in the foreseeable future. The retail version is available on all the store fronts that we mentioned before: Meta, Steam, Pico, and PlayStation VR 2. And, with the holidays around the corner, we encourage you to take a look at any promotions that happen during the holiday season. But for those who have a Meta Quest device and want to experience a sliver of the game, we recently launched SBK Connect, which is a free app anyone can download, and they can experience the tutorial. They can play all the circuits. They can play all the bikes. There's only one single player mode available. However, you could join multiplayer races. So the way that it works would be someone that has the full game can create a private lobby. They can create their own custom code, and then they share it with whoever they want to play. So if you're someone that you're not too sure about it, you have a friend that has been talking to you about getting this game, get this game, I want to race or something like that, the SBK Connect is a perfect sort of companion app, if you will, that someone who has the game can create a lobby, share a code, or even share a link that you just click, and boom, you join their game and you can race. So we recently launched this earlier in November, and we've had a lot of positive reception with that. And we're seeing players join games with their friends, have fun. There's voice chat in the game, so you can talk with friends or you can talk with other people. We have an active Discord community where people are constantly sharing codes. We have a bot set up as well on Discord that kind of incentivizes users like, hey, create a room with this code. And we're just trying to get more people to experience SBK. Yeah. So if you're curious at all, we really would appreciate you checking us out, VRider SBK. And if you want a free version, VRider SBK Connect. Sort of like a demo. And you can get on the Discord and find people to play with, it sounds like. Yeah. So you can try it out. But since Meta has these sort of in-headset chats where you can create a group or a community, as they call it, we have like a couple of community created groups that have like over 50 members, and every day people are sharing a code. Every day people are sharing a link like, hey, join me. Hey, I'm hosting a race. So the community is there. People want to race, and people want to have fun. Well, the game is fun. I can attest to that. So you mentioned it's on Quest 2, and I did notice that there is a toggle for a higher fidelity. I'm sure that you added for the Quest 3 version. So a lot of games that I've played that are older, some of them, they came out on Quest 2. They don't have Quest 3 updates, and they still look like Quest 2 games. And I did toggle that off, and there is a significant difference in the resolution. I just wanted to point that out for anyone who was curious about that. Yeah, it looks a lot better. We originally were working with the Quest 2 like since its inception. And then when the Quest 3 was announced and released, we were like, oh my God, we have so much more hardware to work with. The actual lens is a lot more high def. So we can't have this game look Quest 2 graphics with the Quest 3. So when we launched, one of the updates that we did was a visual boost. Players were extremely happy that we did that. And we were happy as well, because we don't want our game to look choppy. We don't want it to look pixelated. We want it to look and feel amazing. So it was an absolutely wonderful sort of update there. We're constantly trying to do little updates. Like one of the most recent ones was the wheelie feature, being able to physically do a wheelie. You can do it either like pulling your hands up or with your joystick. You can change that in the settings, but all these little things that make the experience, just a little bit better, just another layer, just another thing that the players can enjoy. I haven't tried the wheelie yet, but that's on the list of things to try. I saw that in the settings. Man, I so appreciate you joining me today for this episode of The Safe State and just letting us know all about VRider. What a great game. I'm going to have links in the description below, so it gets you right to those storefronts, right to the game. Check it out. Watch the videos. Check out the companion app. Is that what it's called? What was it called again? SBK Connect.
Connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Check that out, because that sounds like a great way to get your feet wet, so to speak, into the game. But honestly, great game. Thanks, Eduardo, for joining me again. Thank you all for watching. Hope that you have a great day. Stay kind and encouraging out there, and we'll catch you on the flippity flip.